Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Cybercrime Theft of Funds webinar. My name is Sherry Branson, and I'm your host today. I wanted to mention that we have a chat feature available on your screen, so if you have any questions about what we go over today, please type your questions into the chat feature, and we'll answer them during the webinar, or we'll get in touch with you later on after the webinar. And if you have a question after we're done, you could always email it to me at sbranson@kdisonline.com. I'm now joined by Kevin Davis, the president of Kevin Davis Insurance. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Good afternoon, Sherry. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Doing well. The sun came out here, so we're drying out a little bit, so that's good news after all the rain.
Yeah, but you know, during our morning session, Prince died, so that kind of put a damper on the morning, didn't it?
Yeah. It actually is kind of a bittersweet, sad day. That's true. We lost a genius, a music genius, Kevin. Yeah, very sad news, and really unexpected. Just such a shock. I think we're all in shock.
Yeah, I had lunch. We talked about it at lunchtime, so it was definitely one of those things where, you're kind of like, wow, I can't believe that happened. So
Yeah, so young and still performing. I mean, I guess he just performed last night, so it's just, yeah, it's unbelievable. Just really unbelievable. Very sad. Very, very sad. His music is going to live on forever, that's for sure. Yeah, and now, Kevin, we're talking about cybercrime again. Well, last month we talked about data breach quite a bit, and then today is part 2 of our cybercrime series. And I know we have a lot of good information for people today.
Yeah, today will be kind of a little bit different than we did last month. Last month we talked about cyber coverages as it relates to data, loss of data. Today we're talking about loss of funds. There's two different types of cyber. We talk about cyber losses, the data losses, and the theft losses, the theft of money. Today we're going to concentrate really on cybercrime, new coverages available to protect the associations against cyber losses. So that's our talk today.
Absolutely. Okay, great. And I just wanted to mention also, if you'd like a copy of the webinar that we're doing today, I can send you the PowerPoint and also send you the specimen policies for cyber risk and the crime policy. So send me an email to sbranson@kdins.com. And now, Kevin, I know we're going to talk about cyber risk insurance versus crime insurance today. When you talk about cybercrime, what exactly is that, and how does it affect community associations?
Okay, let's give you an example. And the example is what we're going to follow most today. Situation where you live in an HOA, right? Homeowner association.
Yes.
Okay. Let's say the treasurer of your community association. You have a treasurer there, comes to work every day, or he's volunteer, he's there all the time, right? But now he was misled, intentionally misled by a former employee to send funds based upon a fraudulent email.
Okay.
You got that? All right, so your treasurer, you've known for a long time, was lied to. He was tricked into sending funds based on this email.
Okay,
now,
okay.
As a result of that, okay, the operating account, the entire reserve account was stolen, which is about $250,000.
Okay, so it's big theft. They probably wiped out the reserve account.
Now, the question is that covered under the crime policy, a cyber policy, or there's no coverage at all?
That's a very good question. I mean, it sounds like it could be or it could not be. There's different situations, right, Kevin, where what might be and might not be.
And that's what we're talking about today. When we have a situation like that, where's coverage provided? So now, as a basic, we talk about community associations, the way they operate are very, very unique. Again, when you have a fund, when you have the money, when you have reserve accounts and operating accounts, the people who oversee that funds have very little oversight. People those funds, and then most community associations turn over handling all the funds, even the reserve account, which should never happen, to the independent property management, again, with very little oversight.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, what comes to mind is at my association, they do that. They turn it over to the property managers and, without really checking on it very often. So that has me concerned.
Okay. Now, when we talk about cybercrime, we talk about a cyber criminal gaining unauthorized access to the association's funds through the use of computers. We're talking about the assessments, reserve accounts, or even vendor payments.
Okay. And
Okay?
they're trying to get they're trying to get access to the money, of course. That's a big uh, motivation. But the other motivation, as we talked about last month, Kevin, is the data breach. They're trying to get information as well.
That's it. And now, so when we talk about cyber coverages, we're talking about two different types of unique exposures. The first is the loss of data by the individual not authorized to have access to that information, which is the data breach. The other type of exposures involve money. It is the unauthorized transfer of funds by an employee or non-employee. This is crime insurance policy.
Okay. And
Okay?
now crime coverage, Kevin, when you talk about crime coverage, can you explain to everybody what exactly is crime coverage? I know it's called lots of different names.
Yeah. What we're talking about, you're talking about crime insurance can go by different names, right? You got fidelity insurance, fidelity bond, employee dishonesty, employee theft. It's a dishonesty policy, crime insurance, computer theft coverage, social engineering. There's all different kind of names under it. The key thing is that there are all different types of crime policies, and what we want to do today is talk about the different types and how it relates to cyber theft.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. And now, Kevin, for people who are shopping for a crime policy, are there different types of crime policies?
Yeah. Basically, you can find either there's a monoline standalone policy or there's a policy in the package that's embedded in the package. Now, if you buy a crime policy in the package, it's usually at a lower cost, and coverage is very, very restrictive. They usually have a limited definition of employee to only cover compensated employees. And you have, also you don't have coverage for the property manager, because a lot of these associations have an independent property manager, and they're not covered also.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you don't have coverage for social engineering, computer theft, depositors forgery. You know, it's a very limited policy. So what you need is a standalone crime policy that picks up the community association manager, non-compensated board members, computer theft, wire transfer fraud, depositors forgery, all those different kind of coverages that you're going to need if you are trying to really protect your community association's reserve funds, operating funds, all those different kinds of monies that they have access to.
Mm-hmm. And Kevin, for the people who may not have heard of social engineering before, that's something new that we're carrying, correct?
Exactly. And something we'll talk about a little bit later, but definitely something that's really, really new. And again, most people have not any idea what it's all about.
Right. They don't know what it is, and they may not know that we carry that now. Okay. And you mentioned employee theft, Kevin. Can you explain to everybody joining us what exactly is employee theft coverage?
Okay. Employee theft coverage is the standard coverage that most people buy when you're talking about crime insurance. It covers the direct loss of money, securities, and property caused by theft or forgery by an employee.
Okay. Well, now, when you say theft and employee, could you define theft? What exactly is theft?
Okay. So the key coverage here, the key is it has to be a theft. It has to be by an employee. When we talk about theft, we talk about the intentional and unlawful taking of money, securities, or property, deprivation of the insured. And basically, all that means is one thing. There has to be the intent there to cause a loss. If there's without the intent, there's no loss.
Okay. And when you say
Okay.
employee, what are you speaking about there?
Okay. Now, when the employee is compensated by wages, salary, and commission, they got to
Okay.
be compensated. Yes.
Okay, wages, salary, and commission. What comes to my mind is the board members are not paid, Kevin. They're volunteers.
That's correct. That's why the definition of employee must expand it to pick up non-compensated board members.
Mm-hmm. Non-compensated. Okay, that's critical. That's a really important piece to keep in mind, that it should cover non-compensated employees. Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to our original situation we had there, where the ex-employee and the treasurer they didn't get together, with ex-employee tricked the treasurer into getting the money. So let's talk about, was there an unlawful taking of $250,000? The answer is yes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Based on the definition of theft, that falls in definition. So a theft occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was a theft by an employee or not? That's the question.
Hmm.
Now, the board member itself is included as an employee because we pick up non-compensated officers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, but he didn't steal the funds, though, Kevin.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. So he didn't do it. He didn't steal the money. So the ex-employee itself, the former employee, is the criminal.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, key thing though, this is the important thing, is that within a definition of employee, if he stole the funds within 60 days of termination of his employment, then coverage would be provided. He is an employee under definition of employee theft coverage.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's within 60 days and there is coverage. Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. But for sake of argument, we're going to say that the theft occurred 6 months later. So the ex-employee actually misled the treasurer 6 months later after he left the company. So right now, that means there's no coverage, right?
No coverage. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, 'cause he's not an employee under the policy, and in order for him to be covered under employee theft coverage, he has to be an employee.
Okay. So it's
Okay?
getting me worried though, Kevin. No coverage.
All
I'm
right,
getting
now,
worried.
okay, now, here's another part, though. Let's say that I'm throwing a little spin to this thing. And let's say that treasurer, okay, instead of him being misled, we place the word misled with the word collusion.
Collusion. Okay.
Okay, so now all of a sudden, instead of him being misled, he's in collusion with the ex-employee. It's still $1 million.
Okay. So this is a different scenario.
Yeah. So now, if we place that one little word, all of a sudden there's coverage because the employee dishonesty policy extends to employees acting alone or in collusion with others.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Interesting. Wow. Okay. Okay.
But
So
the
that
way it's
changes
written
it.
right now, there's no coverage under this insuring agreement
Okay.
because he's not an employee and the treasurer was misled.
He was misled. Exactly. Okay. And then what about the cyber policy, Kevin? Would there be any coverage there?
Okay, now, because the cyber policy does not have an employee dishonesty section in their policy, I would say no. I would not be any coverage under that employee dishonesty. Under the cyber policy either.
Okay. Not under the cyber policy either. Okay. So still no coverage. Okay. Okay. And now, Kevin, when you talk about computer crime, what exactly are you talking about? Can you get into that in a little more detail?
Computer crime, a computer fraud, is using a computer to fraudulently cause a transfer of money, securities, or property from inside the premises.
Okay.
Okay? And a perfect example is that when an employee leaves his password visible, and you know how you put your password right next to your computer, and somebody walks in the premises, it could be a vendor or somebody from the outside walks in, uses that password, and then he moves funds from the association or from the corporation to his own personal bank account.
Okay. I see. Okay.
It has to be inside the premises.
Okay. That's the difference.
Okay, now, so let's go back to our original example, okay? Now, would it be covered under this section? Now, there was a fraudulent transfer of money, right? $250,000, and the fraud was committed using a computer inside the office there, right? So, again, a computer fraud is a fraudulent cause of a transfer of money inside the premises. So, there was a fraudulent cause to transfer the money from inside the premises.
So you think it might be covered, you would
Now,
think.
the problem is that an inadvertent or misdirected transfer of funds is not covered by this policy.
Okay, inadvertent and misdirected transfer of funds. So that's kind of a fancy way of saying the person was tricked into sending it.
Or made a mistake.
Or made a mistake. So basically, somebody sends me an email, they ask me to transfer the money, I make the transfer thinking it's legitimate, but really that's inadvertent and, okay, misdirected. Okay. So I was tricked into sending the money, just like this treasurer was.
Exactly. So now, coverage could apply if the ex-employee entered the building, gained access to the board member's computer using that treasurer's password. So if he went inside and did it without the treasurer's involvement, then coverage could be considered under the computer crime section of the crime policy.
Okay. Okay.
But right now, there's no coverage under the computer crime policy section endorsement of the policy.
Okay, so no coverage at all in this situation as well. Okay. And then the cyber, Kevin, the same thing with cyber?
Exactly. Now, there is a computer crime section under the cyber policy, but again, because of that involvement with the misled treasurer, they would be denied also.
Okay, that would be denied as well. Okay. Okay. And now I just wanted to mention again, if anybody would like a copy of today's webinar, please send me an email to sbranson@kdisonline.com. And if you have any questions, please type your questions into the chat box that's on your screen, Or if you think of something later on, just send me an email with your question as well. And I can also send you specimen policies of our cyber risk policy and our computer policy, crime policy, I mean. Now, Kevin, you mentioned funds transfer. What exactly is funds transfer?
Okay. Funds transfer fraud coverage applies if a financial institution transfers funds based upon fraudulent documentation from the insured without the insured's consent or knowledge.
Okay.
Okay? All right, now what does that mean? Let's go back to our scenario again about the ex-employee and the treasurer.
Okay.
Now, they be covered under the transfer fraud section. Now, there was a fraudulent transfer of money of $250,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? However, the problem is that the fraud was committed with the consent and knowledge of the insured. That's the difference.
Right, right. The person just did it without questioning it. Mm-hmm.
Yep, the transaction was authorized by the Board of Association.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he was tricked into doing it, but he was still doing it.
He was still doing it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about how coverage would apply. Coverage would apply if the ex-employee used the board member's password, directed the bank to transfer funds from the association to one of his accounts. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, again, the problem here is that the board member's involvement. Without him, coverage would have been probably either covered under the funds transfer or computer theft coverage.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So no coverage again. Interesting. And now, Kevin, again, I have to ask a question. Cyber, would it be covered under cyber?
Same thing. Yes, you have this coverage under a cyber policy, fund transfer. However, because of that board member was involved, again, they have to deny it also.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, the million-dollar question now, Kevin, is would there be coverage anywhere? Because it sounds like in this scenario, it's very hard to get coverage. Where would this be covered?
Sure. You got the employee theft coverage. He's not an employee. You got the computer theft coverage. He's not covered because it was outside the premises. It's not funds transfer because it was outside, but it was the board member that was misled. So now you have something called social engineering coverage, and that's where the coverage is provided.
Okay. This is where the social engineering comes in that we talked about a little bit earlier. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this is added on to the crime policy. The social engineering is added on. Okay. Now, what
That's exactly what it is.
Okay. And what
it's an endorsement to the crime policy.
Okay.
Protects the employees insured or people pretending to be vendors, employees, or clients.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. So that sounds just like what our ex-employee did, right, Kevin?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. He's pretending to be somebody he's not. So social engineering covers the transferring, paying, or delivering funds caused by social engineering fraud.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And social engineering fraud is the intentional misleading of an employee through written instructions received by the employee.
Okay. Okay, that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar.
Exactly. Go back to the original situation, where the treasurer received an email from the ex-employee telling him to do something. And as a result, $250,000 is gone. So it was a fraudulent transfer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the person was directed into transferring, paying, or delivering funds by means of social engineering.
Interesting. And between the last webinar and this webinar, I received an email, which I think is a social engineering email. Somebody wants me to do they made it look like a Bank of America email, but I know it's not. There's something funny looking about it. And they said, you need to make some changes to your account.
Yeah, again, we will see these things a lot. We'll see them more and more. Social engineering is the easiest way to get somebody to do something because it is preying upon their insecurities or preying upon their niceness as opposed to trying to go inside the system and hack into the system. It's a lot easier to use social engineering than anything else. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why that works. Mm-hmm. So what we're talking about here is social engineering, okay? One thing I got to mention is that an employee must be convinced that the request to send money is legitimate and acts upon that request and sends money to that fictitious account. Mm-hmm. That's the key part of it. He has to know. He has to be convinced that it's true. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened in the situation right now. If you go back to the situation, the ex-employee misled the treasurer, and as a result, $250,000 is missing. The ex-employee is still not an insured under this policy, but because of this new insurance agreement, the board member is a victim of social engineering fraud So now it's provided under the social engineering fraud coverage.
Okay. And again, Kevin, I have to ask a question. Would cyber cover this, a cyber
Okay.
policy?
All right. There is no social engineering fraud claim section under the cyber policy.
Okay. So that's a totally separate thing. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, great. And again, if anybody would like a copy of our specimen policies, I have a cyber risk policy and a crime policy. And I also have a social engineering application that I can send to you if you'd like a quote for social engineering. And now, Kevin, talking about more parts of crime policies, what are the other areas of crime policies that people should be aware of, and what are the different coverages available?
Okay, sure. The one area you're talking about is forgery or alteration. Now, when we talk about forgery or alteration, this applies to the forgery or alteration of a financial instrument issued by the insured with intent to deceive.
Okay. So when you say financial instrument, is that a fancy word for checks?
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, you ask your bank to send you a new box of checks. Somebody gets a hold of them, starts forging their name on them, sending them out. That is what the forgery alteration coverage is under this insuring agreement.
And it's easy to make fake checks. I've seen where people are making fake checks very easily, so I could see where if they got a hold of an association's check and made some fake checks there, they could write checks on the reserve account.
Yep. And the key word here is they have to be the intent to deceive. Because, for example, you know, my wife signs my checks. You know, they come in the mail. My income tax checks just came in, and she signed my name and deposited it. Now, she may or may not have my authority, but the key word is intent to deceive.
Okay. Okay. So
And I'm quite sure you probably get your husband's checks comes in, and you probably sign them. And
sign them all the time. Yeah.
yeah. That's a fortune.
Well, he knows I'm doing it, so I think it's okay.
All right. We'll find out later on, okay? Now, the next coverage we talk about is money orders and counterfeit currency. Okay? This is loss caused by insured's good faith acceptance of worthless money orders or counterfeit currency.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Yeah. And I did see something on television. You can make fake money very easily, counterfeit money very easily. Somebody was making 20s in their garage with a laser printer. So it's high technology is so advanced.
Exactly. You get a good scanner, laser printer. You can duplicate almost anything. Checks, money, anything. So that's why this coverage is important. If you get fake money or a worthless money order, you might be out of thousands of dollars. So it doesn't hurt to have a little extra coverage. It's not a big deal. Not expensive.
Sure.
Now, a couple other coverages that get ignored all the time, and it's probably okay to be ignored, that is premises and in-transit coverage. When you see that on the application, that's really if you have a lot of money, a lot of cash on the premises. It needs to be you need to go in transit to go to a financial institution, a bank, or situation like that. So no, I wouldn't worry about those two coverages that much unless you have a lot of money. Now, the key thing about this coverage is that it is broader than just theft. You know, when we talked about the other coverages, it's about theft. In premises and transit coverage, it's about theft, destruction, and disappearance of money.
Okay.
It's a little bit broader than just the theft itself.
Okay. That's good to know. So that would be in the case of an association that kept a lot of cash on hand, or they're transporting cash back and forth. Okay. And if anybody has any questions about these coverages, you know, please put your question in the chat box, or you could email us, and I could send you the specimen policy as well.
Okay, so let's kind of do a kind of quick recap on what we're talking about.
Okay.
We're talking about how technology has changed the way we do business today. Cyber criminals are there. They either want money, or they want information, or they want both. We talked about cyber in terms of loss of data. Now you know the impact of cybercrime to your organization. So you have to purchase adequate insurance. Not only employee theft coverage, but you have to have computer theft, wire transfer fraud, social engineering, maybe depositors forgery, money orders, and counterfeit currency. But without those coverages, you cannot safeguard the resident's operating account, reserve account, vendor payments. You can't do it. So look at your coverages, look at your insurance coverage, and make sure you have them. You got to make sure you have those coverages.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for an excellent webinar, Kevin. Thank you very much for that great information. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you'd like a copy of today's presentation, please send me an email to sbranson@kdins.com. I can also send you a social engineering application. And again, I can send you our specimen policies on cyber risk and also our crime policy. Please join us on May 19th as we do a cyber Q&A. So if you have any questions you'd like to submit for that webinar, please email them to me and we can cover them in the next webinar. Or if you need to know something right away, just email me and I'll get back to you right away with the answer to your question. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.